You won't believe what happened to us recently. It all started when my wife and I were just trying to enjoy some quiet time at home with our newborn baby. We live in a community with a homeowners association, or HOA, and honestly, we never expected much trouble. But then, out of nowhere, this woman, everyone calls her the HOA, Karen, showed up at our doorstep with demands that felt more like a threat. She actually told my wife to hand over our newborn right there in front of me. The nerve. At first, I thought it was some kind of prank or misunderstanding, but no, it was serious, and things quickly escalated. Now, this HOA Karen is known around the neighborhood for causing drama, always trying to control everything. But this was on a whole new level. What she wanted and why she was acting like this had me baffled and on edge. I wasn't about to let her get away with it, especially when it involved my family. What she didn't know was that I'm not just some ordinary guy. I'm a Navy SEAL. Veteran, trained for situations far tougher than this, and I knew I had to protect my wife and our baby no matter what. As I stood there, facing off with this woman who thought she could intimidate us, I realized this was going to be way more than a simple HOA dispute. The tension was thick, and I could see that this was just the beginning of something much bigger. What would happen next? Would she back off, or was she going to push this too far? You're going to want to hear the rest of this story, because it doesn't end the way you might expect. Stay tuned. Things didn't just happen overnight. The tension with this HOA Karen had been simmering for weeks before she showed up demanding our newborn. It started with small complaints about the lawn, the mailbox, even the way we parked our car. At first, we tried to be good neighbors and follow the rules, but it felt like no matter what we did, she found a reason to pick a fight. It was exhausting. My wife was already overwhelmed with the newborn, and dealing with her constant nagging made everything harder. What made it worse was that the HOA seemed to back her up, like they were more interested in power than in fairness. Every letter we received felt like a threat dressed up as a notice, but this was different. When she came to our door demanding to take our baby, it crossed a line. I couldn't understand what her problem really was. Was it jealousy, control, or something deeper? The whole neighborhood had been whispering about her for months, calling her HOA Karen behind her back because of how she acted. But no one had ever seen her push this far before. I kept thinking about my training and the Navy SEALs. The discipline, the focus, the way we handled threats, those lessons came rushing back. It wasn't just about muscle or tactics. It was about staying calm under pressure and protecting what mattered most. I wanted to keep my family safe, but I also knew this was going to get complicated. If I pushed back too hard, it might make things worse with the HOA and the neighbors. But if I didn't stand up, I risked losing more than just peace of mind. As I stood there, watching her eyes flash with that strange mix of anger and something I couldn't quite place, I realized this wasn't just a fight over rules anymore. There was a story here, something beneath the surface that no one was telling. What was she really after? And why did it feel like this was only the beginning of a much bigger problem? The answers were still out there, waiting. I started digging a little deeper into the situation, talking quietly to a few neighbors who seemed just as fed up but afraid to speak out. What I learned made the whole thing even stranger. This HOA Karen had a history. She wasn't just a tough rule enforcer. Some people believed she had personal reasons for her behavior. Rumors floated around about her wanting to control certain families, maybe even manipulate situations to keep her influence strong. It felt less like a neighborhood dispute and more like a power struggle behind the scenes. Suddenly, our conflict wasn't just about a lawn or parking anymore. It was about standing up to someone who used the HOA rules as a weapon. Meanwhile, my wife was feeling the weight of all this on top of everything else. Taking care of a newborn is hard enough without having to face constant stress from someone who clearly had it out for us. She was worried not just for herself, but for our baby's safety. I could see it in her eyes, the fear and frustration. That made me even more determined to protect them. But I also knew that jumping in too fast might only escalate things. On top of that, I started noticing how the HOA meetings were going. They were filled with tension, complaints, and alliances forming quietly. It was like watching a game where everyone had their own secret agenda. The HOA Karen was pushing harder, throwing her weight around, and some neighbors were starting to take sides. It felt like the calm, friendly community we once knew was breaking apart. Through it all, I kept thinking about my Navy SEAL training, about patience, strategy, and reading people. This wasn't just about muscle or confrontation. It was about understanding the bigger picture and knowing when to make a move. The real question was, what move would keep my family safe and bring the truth out before things spiraled even further? The next chapter was waiting to unfold, and I had to be ready. Days passed, and the tension in the neighborhood felt like a storm ready to break. Every time I saw that HOA Karen, her glare was sharper, more calculating. She wasn't just someone enforcing rules anymore. She was a threat looming over my family. The way she showed up at our door demanding our newborn wasn't some one-off moment. It was a clear warning that she was willing to go to extreme lengths. I could feel the weight of it pressing down on us, especially on my wife, who was becoming more anxious with each passing day. I started keeping a close eye on her, watching her interactions during HOA meetings and around the neighborhood. There was something almost sinister about how she moved and spoke, like she was always 2 steps ahead. Some neighbors whispered about her, trying to dig up dirt or create trouble for families she didn't like. It was like she wanted control, not just over the community rules, but over the people themselves. That realization made me tighten my focus. This wasn't just a neighborhood problem, it was personal. At home, the atmosphere was thick with unease. My wife and I were careful, but the fear was hard to hide, especially with a newborn who needed calm and love. I knew I had to be strong, but inside, I was preparing for whatever might come next. The lessons from my Navy SEAL days echoed in my mind: always stay alert, protect your team, and never underestimate the enemy. Then one evening, things reached a boiling point. The HOA Karen showed up again, but this time, it wasn't just words. There was a crowd gathering, neighbors watching from behind curtains and windows. She was determined, and so was I as we faced off. The air was thick with tension. What she said next sent a chill down my spine, and I knew the situation was about to explode. This was the moment everything had been leading up to: the clash. That would change everything. But how would it end? That part was still hanging in the balance. Just when I thought the situation couldn't get any worse, something unexpected happened that flipped everything upside down. As the HOA Karen's words hung heavy in the air, a neighbor I barely knew stepped forward. At first, I thought maybe they were going to back her up, but instead, they dropped a bombshell. They revealed that the HOA Karen wasn't just obsessed with control. There were rumors swirling about her, trying to hide something serious. Something that could explain why she was targeting certain families, including ours. Suddenly, the whole conflict felt even more complicated. It wasn't just about rules or power anymore. It was about secrets buried beneath the surface. The tension in the neighborhood shifted, and people started watching her with suspicion instead of fear. But she didn't back down. Instead, her behavior became more aggressive, almost desperate. It was like she was trying to cover her tracks. Before anyone could uncover the truth at that moment, I realized this fight wasn't just about protecting my wife and our newborn from an overbearing HOA member. It was about exposing something bigger, something that could shake up the entire community. The weight of that realization pressed on me, mixing with the fear and anger I already felt. My Navy SEAL training told me to stay calm and think strategically. But this was unlike any mission I'd faced before. The neighborhood was on edge. Whispers turning into open conversations, and the HOA meetings became battlegrounds where alliances shifted by the minute. Meanwhile, the HOA Karen's moves grew more unpredictable, making it harder to figure out her next step. I knew one thing for sure. Whatever was really going on, it wasn't going to end quietly or easily. The stakes were higher than ever, and the showdown we all dreaded was just around the corner. The day everything came to a head arrived faster than I expected. The neighborhood was buzzing, and the HOA Karen was more confrontational than ever. She showed up again at our door, this time with a group of supporters from the HOA trying to intimidate us into giving up. But I was ready. I calmly reminded them that our family was protected by the law, and no one had the right to threaten or demand our newborn. That's when I revealed something I hadn't said before. I'm a Navy SEAL veteran. The room went silent. The confidence I showed wasn't just for show. It was a warning that I knew how to protect my family, and I wasn't afraid to do what it took. But the real surprise came moments later. The neighbor who had previously spoken up stepped forward, with evidence, a file of documents and emails showing that the HOA Karen had been abusing her power, falsifying complaints, and even trying to manipulate the HOA board for her own gain. It was clear she wasn't just a strict neighbor. She was using the HOA as a tool for personal vendettas. The HOA board had no choice but to act, and soon, her influence began to crumble. Just as we thought the storm was finally passing, the unexpected twist hit. The HOA Karen, in a last attempt to save face, revealed she had connections to a local real estate developer who wanted to buy several homes in the neighborhood, including ours. Her harassment wasn't just about control. It was about pushing families out to make way for new construction. That explained everything: the sudden demands, the pressure, the escalation. With the truth out in the open, the community rallied together, and the HOA Karen's plans unraveled. We stood stronger than ever, protecting our family and our home. But knowing what we know now, the fight to keep our neighborhood safe was far from over. The real battle had just begun. After everything came to light, the neighborhood felt different, like a weight had been lifted. The HOA Karen's grip on the community weakened quickly once the board started investigating her actions. It was clear she had been playing a dangerous game, using fear and false complaints to push families around. But now, with the truth revealed, neighbors who had been silent began to speak up, sharing their own experiences and standing together against any future threats. Our community found strength in unity, and that gave me hope. For my wife and me, the biggest relief was finally feeling safe in our own home again. Raising a newborn is challenging enough without the shadow of someone trying to disrupt your peace. I realized that sometimes standing up for your family means more than just physical protection. It means being willing to face the hard truths and fight for what's right. My Navy SEAL training helped me stay calm under pressure, but it was the support from our neighbors and the truth that made all the difference. Looking back, this whole ordeal taught me a lot about community, resilience, and trust. Even in tough situations, there's strength in standing together and not letting fear control your life. The HOA system can be complicated, and sometimes people misuse it, but when neighbors come together, they can make a real difference. Our story isn't just about one difficult HOA member. It's about protecting what matters most: family, home, and peace of mind. As things settle, hope this story encourages others dealing with similar challenges to stand firm and seek the truth. We all deserve to feel safe where we live, especially with family. The fight might not be over for every neighborhood, but for us, this chapter has closed with hope for better days ahead.